Hey friends, my name is Richie and welcome back to my channel, Gender Not Found. So I'm about to read chapter 61 and 62. Wait, is it 61 and 62? Yeah, it's chapter 61 and 62 of A Guardian Angel. I do just want to say my Ethernet is not working. My Ethernet isn't working at all. It was never working in the first place, and so yeah, I had that problem. And I also uploaded a video that was saying that I couldn't upload videos and I couldn't film or anything because I didn't have access to the internet, but I fixed it by Googling and doing research like I do. So anyway, I guess we're gonna read chapter 61 and 62, and I am really, really looking forward to knowing what happens because we left it on a very depressing but also a little hopeful note, like Fiona was able to calm Ignitus down and stuff like that. But it is depressing, and now Iggy's grandmother is dead, so we're gonna have to deal with that. There's a lot going on in this book, and just so you guys know, I actually have a playlist, of A Guardian Angel, which is, like, every chapter I've read up to this point, so if you guys want to check out that playlist, you can check it out. It's somewhere on my channel. It's public, so go find it if you guys, are only seeing this now and you haven't because it has all the videos. It has like the whole book that I've read up to this point, and we are nearly halfway through. I have to say, we're nearly at chapter 67. We only have 6, 7. We only have 7 more chapters to go, and then we're gonna be halfway through. So I'm gonna do this one. For this video, this is going to be chapter 61 and 62, and then the next one that I'm going to do when I read this book is going to be chapter 63 to 67, a burst upload, so it's probably going to take 7 or 8 hours in order to upload, if just going by what I know. And for the Ethernet, I returned all the Ethernet stuff. I have one more thing I'm going to try, but I might just be stuck with crappy Wi-Fi until I can afford a really expensive and good quality Wi-Fi adapter that'll actually do well for me, or until I get to subsidized housing, and then, I'll be paying less money, so I'll be able to afford internet. I'll be able to afford faster internet. Anyway, I'm gonna. Oh gosh. Okay. I'm gonna read Guardian Angel. Alright. Chapter 61, The Sun and the Moon. It had been a week. Sorry. It had been a week. A week since the fire, a week since Fiona and Marshall had found Ignitus, and a week since he had been missing. Amber got the text a week ago that Marshall and Fiona had found her brother. She was going to come down to bring him back to their place, and by the time she'd arrived the next day, he was one. He was one? What? She'd awoken Marshall and Fiona asking where he'd been, but it was apparent. Oh, he was gone. I guess she forgot to put the G. She'd awoken Marshall and Fiona asking where he'd been, but it was apparent that he snuck out early that morning while the pair slept. He hadn't even taken his truck. Amber was concerned because this was not like her brother. Her brother did not up and vanish into thin air for days at a time without so much as a phone call, but then again, it's not like he had a phone anyways. He left it at the hospital. The more time Amber spent with her parents planning her grandmother's funeral, the more angry and short that she got with them. In her grandmother's will, it stated that she wanted an open casket funeral. Her father wanted her to be cremated, and Amber knew that it was only to spite her brother should he come to the funeral. So after having an all-out temper tantrum and crying hysterically, Amber convinced her parents to have the open casket ceremony as her Nana wished. If Ignitus found out about the funeral in time, he could at least see her one last time. There was going to be a reading of the will at the lawyer's office after the service, and the redhead was sure that her parents would try to run that as well. It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday that the funeral was held. Sunday would be the final viewing before she was buried next to their grandfather. Ember waited, watching the door with rapt attention, searching out her brother, and when the time came for the service to end, she sighed, watching as the family left the room, leaving her alone with the casket. It was funny how much colder her parents had begun to treat her, all for sticking up for her brother. Walking up to the casket, she paused, before placing her hand on her grandmother's. It was unnerving. What had once been warm and soft, loving hands were now cold and stiff. Her hair, though, that's what was bothering her. Something about the style was wrong, and Ember knew that Ignitus would be able to pick it out without a problem. Reaching into her purse, she pulled out a small photo. The edges were singed. Sorry. The edges were singed and curled, discolored from both smoke and time. It was her favorite photo, and it was the original. Taking it, Ember tucked it into her clasped hands. It was a picture of her and Ignitus together when he was no more than 5 or 6. Closing her eyes, she kneeled at the pew by the side of the casket. Nana, I know you're listening to me now. Please take care of Iggy. Keep him safe. The Sunday morning was gray and dreary, wet with rain and tears if he had any left. Honestly, he'd been wandering for the last few days, sleeping in abandoned buildings. Drinking more than he'd like to admit, and taking more of those pills than he ever would admit. It had been raining when he first started walking, but now it was a complete downpour, and moving under the first thing that offered cover, Ignitus shook his head, getting the rain out of his hair. Suddenly, something across the street caught his attention. It was a truck at a funeral home. They were having his grandmother's funeral, and nobody had told him. Because nobody could find you. Quickly, he crossed the street, almost being hit in the process by a passing car, and not even caring. Pushing the door open, he spotted a sign with 2 arrows pointing in opposite directions, one with his family's name on it. His anger was gone now, mostly subdued by the sight of friends and family sitting in chairs, others hugging his parents and sister, but mostly by the sight of the casket at the front of the room, surrounded by dozens of beautiful flower arrangements. Immediately he felt filthy and underdressed, spotting even Marshall and Fiona, his friends, wearing formal attire, yet here he was in soaking wet jeans, a damp t-shirt, and a sweatshirt that reeked of alcohol. Pulling off the sweatshirt, he hung it up. It was honestly the only thing he could think to do that would better his appearance, but then again, his grandmother never cared what he wore or what he looked like, as long as she saw him. So swallowing thickly, he walked in the room, still wet from the rain, and headed straight for the casket, ignoring the heavy weight of the stairs on his back. Ignitus paused to step away, steeling himself before he stepped forward to look at her, feeling only relief. She looked as if she could be sleeping, not like she died in a house fire. Sorry guys, hang on a second. Then he squinted his eyes because something was off, and realizing that it was her hair, he easily brushed her bangs from one side of her face to the other, moving the hair clip to the other side as he did so. Now she looked like his Nana. Letting out a wavering breath, he leaned down and kissed her forehead, just like he did every time they said goodbye to each other at the end of his stay with her, only this time it was permanent. There would be no welcome back hugs or kisses on his cheeks. There would be no awkward attempts at her matchmaking. The woman who playfully teased him was a thing of the past. Their weekend lunch dates would never happen again. She would tease him for remaining single, and he would tease her back, always asking her the same question. Nana, why would I spend my time hunting some cutie down when I have my best girl right here? He would ask. Then she would laugh that laugh that she only used around him. Smile and tell him that there was a young lady waiting for him somewhere, someone who would love him more than he could ever imagine, and he would smile and believe her. Blinking back the tears, he sighed, straightening only when he felt as if he was physically able. Reaching over, he touched her hand. It was cold, just like he was now. You're still my best girl, he said softly, feeling his heart wrench. Goodbye, Nana. I'll see you soon. Moving his hand, he walked past his parents, ignoring them, and the weight of their stares on him before stopping in front of his sister. You could have told me, he said, staring at her and watching as she reached into her purse and pressed something cool into his hand. How could I? Don't fall off the grid again. You stay until the service is over. I don't care where you stay. I don't care where, but you stay. Nana left something for you in her will, Ember said softly, yet firmly. Looking down, Ignitus spotted his cell phone in his hand. That explained a lot. I'll be in my truck. Okay, I've got your keys. Hearing this, he nodded and walked from the room. He didn't want to be around anyone, he wanted silence, and for his thoughts to cease their chaotic racing. Grabbing his hoodie, Ignitus walked through the rain, sitting in his truck as he cracked the window, and leaning the seat back as he closed his eyes, swallowing another pill, and grimacing that he had nothing left to wash it down with. After being without it for a week and only Ember using it, the truck smelled a lot like her perfume, and for some weird reason, it made him feel guilty. Is your head okay? You banged it up pretty bad. Glancing over, he spotted Marshall. Get in, it's wet. Ignitus watched as Marshall walked around the other side and sat in the passenger seat. It doesn't hurt anymore. What, your head? Anything, man. I've officially drank away all my problems. Been hanging out places, just getting my mind off of stuff. Ignitus, you're not back with Angel, are you? Marshall asked, knowing that more than anything, his friend had a habit of clinging to things that unintentionally caused him problems. We've been together a few times this week. Just don't do it, man. Don't tell Fiona. What do you care what she thinks? You don't care about what anyone thinks, ever. I don't. Then why'd you ask? Because your girlfriend is scary when she's mad. True enough, I still think it's a bad idea, though. Well, it's not your life, Marshall. It's my life. If I want to drink until I can't process shit anymore, then I'll do it. If I want to stay with the same sleazy-ass chick, then I'll do it. She's a distraction, Marsh. She's not my Fiona. So, you know that you don't love her, but you're with her anyways? You know what a distraction is, Marshall. As I recall, there were 2 or so after you and Ashley broke up the first time. Low blow, but point taken. There was silence in the truck, and it felt as if it had lasted hours upon hours before Ignitus spoke up once again. What am I going to do, Marshall? The question lingered in the air for a moment before his friend responded to him as honestly as he could. I don't know, man. Only you can truly know that. Hearing this, the redhead nodded. I think I'm going to cut my hair. Mohawk again? Nah, I'm in an adult world dealing with adult problems. Something else. Hearing this, Marshall nodded. You okay? No, but it's not like I have a choice. He could feel the effects of the pill kicking in as his senses slowly began to dull. You should go back inside. Fiona will be missing you, he said, watching as Marshall understood the unspoken request to be alone. That was a good thing, because eventually Marshall would have been able to tell he was on something. He was perceptive to stuff like that. Closing his eyes again, Ignitus let his mind wander, feeling his thoughts become slow and sluggish. The last thing he registered before sleep took him were thoughts of a dark-haired girl that he hadn't seen or spoken to in more than 2 weeks. Marceline was bored, supremely bored, and if she recalled correctly, Ignitus would be at his grandmother's house taking care of his Nana. Marceline didn't want to admit it, but she was thinking that maybe she liked the redhead as more than just a friend. But then again, she couldn't do that. It was a bad idea. Dating friends only caused problems and awkward situations. With a sigh, Marceline rolled off her bed and walked from her room. She could have mixed feelings as much as she wanted, but that didn't mean they couldn't hang out. It was cloudy but warm out, and it smelled like rain. Deciding that she didn't want to be alone, Marceline headed to Finn's house, wondering if maybe Finn or Fiona would want to hang out, and if not, then surely Ignitus would. After all, his grandmother absolutely loved her. It was fun their first few times hanging out over there, and as she walked in the direction of her friends' houses, she couldn't help but think back on how she and Ignitus had met. The memories had all come back to her, and even the parts she couldn't remember well, Ignitus had filled her in on. Flashback. Guys, that was totally rad, Marceline said the moment Fiona's boyfriend and his cute red-headed friend and the other boy from the band exited the building. Marsh, that was so much fun, Fiona said excitedly. Apparently I'm in detention for 1,000,000 years, Marshall said with a grin as the 2 girls laughed. Well, better you than me. I'd actually like to graduate, Marceline said with a shrug. So I hear that there's a pretty sweet after-party a few blocks from here. Anyone want to come? She asked, looking from Fiona and Marshall to his friends. Heck yes, I am so in, Ash said quickly as FP agreed. I'm at where the party's at. What about you guys? Marceline asked, turning to face Fiona and Marshall. Nah, I'm not feeling up to it tonight. I'm kinda tired. You can go if you want to, Marsh, Fiona said as he shrugged. Leave you alone? Not a chance, he said, taking the blonde's hand. Well, I guess that's that. Later, dudes, FP said as the trio began heading towards the next party, Marceline leading the way. Bye, Fiona. Next time we'll rock out even harder. It'll be magical, Marceline said, walking backwards as she waved. Later, Marcy, the blonde called back as the dark-haired girl grinned. So, where's the party? The redhead asked as they walked down the sidewalk. It's a few blocks away, but it's supposed to be killer, Marcy said as she continued leading the way. You know, you have a short amount of self-preservation for a girl your age, Ash said as they walked along. Hearing this weirded out Marceline. Turning, she looked at him. What exactly is that supposed to mean? Well, you're disturbingly comfortable walking to a party with two guys that you just met. Hearing this, Marceline edged towards the left, putting space between herself and the brunette, and seeing this, the redhead laughed hard. Way to go, Ash. Now she probably thinks you're some kind of psycho killer. Good job, man. Shut up, Ignitus. Hearing his name piqued her attention. What kind of name is Ignitus? She asked, and he was quick to reply. What kind of name is Marceline? I happen to like my name. So do I, he said with a grin, watching as the team before him smoked. Party's at that house over there. Hope you guys don't mind alcohol because Lisa throws a killer party, Marceline said with a wicked grin as she walked up the steps, and without even knocking, she pushed the door open. Oh my God, Marcy! That was a voice she could recognize anywhere. Reaching over, she bumped her knuckles against the pair right in front of her. Hey, Lisa, sweet party. Oh my God, Marcy, you don't even know. First, my parents were all like, Lisa, we're trusting you to keep the house nice while we go out. And I was like, but Mom, me and Brad are going to prom. We won't even be here. So my mom said, Lisa, whatever you do, don't throw a huge after party. And I said, whatevs, fine, I won't do it. So I threw a small one instead. Glob. So yeah, I broke up with Brad because I saw him kissing Brittany. And I was all like, what the junk, Brad? And Lisa, forget all that and just party with me. Forget that, loser. You deserve a break, Marcy said as she crossed her arms, watching as Lisa wholeheartedly agreed with her. Knowing Lisa meant agreeing with her to get her to shut up sometimes, and knowing Lisa, Marceline knew that she would go on for days and then none of them would ever have fun. Oh my glob, Marcy, you're so right. Now tell me who these cuties behind you are, she said, looking to Ash and Ignitus. This is Ash and I'm Ignitus, Marcy's date. I just showed up late to the prom, he said, throwing his arm around Marceline's shoulders and watching as Lisa looked a little disappointed. Oh, leave it to you and Fiona to always pick up the super hotties, Marcy. Glob. Go do whatever you guys want. Just don't break any of my parents' junk, Lisa said as she turned and walked away into the house. Hearing this, Ash walked into the party, and after shrugging his arm off her shoulders, Marceline turned to face Ignitus. You're my date, huh? Not if you don't want me to be, but seriously, that girl kinda creeps me out. Now Marceline laughed. Okay, then stick by me and I'll keep you safe from Lisa. Hours passed as they drank, snacked, and played games. Marceline could tell that, like her, Ignitus was used to drinking. It was the ease in which he walked, while a good majority of the teens were stumbling around, the smoothness of his words while they were slurring their sentences. He too was an experienced drinker. Hey, want to get something stronger? I know where Lisa's dad keeps the good stuff. Marceline watched as he thought about it for a moment before he grinned, nodding his head and followed after her. Lisa's dad always kept an alcohol closet in his office, filled with his favorite expensive liquors. She watched as he walked over, examining the bottles, before pulling one out. This is some great stuff, like top of the line meets grade A fancy, he said, holding up the bottle. I know a place where we can drink that without people bugging us, too. Come on, she said, leading the way through the house. See, everybody knows about the basement being finished, but Lisa never told anyone about her mom's office in the attic. She worked from it for like a week and gave up being self-employed, so after that they made it into a spare bedroom. Marceline climbed a set of stairs, pointing to a cord that FP was just able to reach, and watched as he pulled the retractable stairs down. Climbing first, he pulled Marceline into the attic before pulling the stairs up. So, since you're my date and all, why don't you tell me a bit about you? The black-haired girl said as she sat on the beanbag chair watching as Ignitus sat in front of her on the other. Okay, what do you want to know? He asked, opening the bottle. Why don't we make this a 20 questions kind of drinking game? Marceline suggested, kicking her shoes off and tossing them to the ground behind her near the desk. Sure, what are the rules? How about every time we answer a question the other drinks, and if you skip a question, you have to drink? That sounds about fair. Okay, then ladies first, how long have you been playing bass? Ignitus asked, preparing to take a drink from the bottle. 9 years, the last four in a band, Marceline said, watching as Ignitus took a drink. This stuff is strong. I'll keep that in mind. What are you doing here? I know you don't live here, she asked, taking the bottle from his offered hand. Well, if it's a party, then I want to be there, and since Fiona had prom, I thought, why not? Hearing this, she took a drink and winced slightly. Whoa, that is strong. Told ya, Ignitus said with a grin as he leaned against the wall. Okay, my turn again. Huh, I'm bad at questions, he said with a laugh as he scratched the back of his head. Well, how about I ask a question and we both answer it? That'll work, but now I have to drink twice, he said with a laugh. That's totally fair. Who has been the biggest influence in your life? Hearing this, Ignitus took 2 sips before passing the bottle to Marceline, who took a drink of her own. My Nana has to be my biggest influence. She's like the best person ever. She never looked at me like I was anything less, not like my parents. She's the only person that I know for sure loves me, no matter what stupid stuff I do. I know that she'll always love me. I don't know what I'd do without her. What about you? My grandfather. He practically raised me after my mother died. My dad kinda zoned out, so he stepped in. What stuff makes you laugh? She asked, watching as once again Ignitus took a drink. Anything stupid, like seriously, if it's weird or inappropriate, I'll probably laugh. Yeah, me too, it's kinda jacked, Marceline said, taking a gulp, feeling as her head began to grow cloudy. Oh, I've got one. Where's your favorite place in the entire world? Ignitus asked, watching as she took a drink before passing him the bottle. My favorite place is the park. There's a huge oak tree that I like to climb there. My favorite place is the waterfall near my grandmother's house. It's here. I'll bring you sometime, he said with a grin, taking another gulp of the burning liquid. Who's your best friend? Marceline asked quickly as she continued thinking of questions to ask, her thoughts sluggish. Marshall, of course. He always has my back. Mine was my friend Bonnie, but now it's a tie between Finn and Fiona. Finn's always been there when I need him, and Fiona's the same way. What's your favorite movie? And we both forgot to drink, Ignitus said as Marceline took a swig and handed him the bottle. Mine's kind of childish, but it's Lilo and Stitch. Are you kidding? I love that movie. I won't lie, though. Mine's The Lion King. You're lying. I swear I'm not. I love those Disney movies, he said with a laugh, as once again they drank. Okay, my turn. And do you have a nickname? And if so, where'd it come from? Now FP took a long drink. Okay, this one's a long story, so I'll try to make it short. My nicknames, and I have a few, are FP, Flame Prince, Iggy, and Ig. Marshall and the guys usually call me FP or Flame Prince because of 3 reasons. 1, I'm a redhead. 2, I have a bit of a thing for fire. And 3, because I can be a bit hot-headed when I'm mad. FP's just a shorter version, and the only people who can call me Iggy are really close friends, and my little sister. Ig's just a short version of that, too. You're right, that's a long story. Sometimes people call me Marcy, but that's all for me, Marceline said with a laugh. What's your favorite dessert? Chocolate strawberry cake, hands down. It's flippin' amazing, he said, taking another drink and passing her the bottle as he leaned towards her, still leaning against the wall. Her face was flushed as she leaned against the wall, giggling. I'll have to try that. I'll have to try that then. What do I like? Marceline asked with a laugh, her head beyond cloudy. She, for some weird reason, found it hilarious that she just couldn't answer his question. I don't know what I like. I like you. You're really cool and vibrant, and you're just there, blazing like the sun, she said, her voice trailing off as she stared at him, listening to his reply. Yeah? Ignitus leaned a bit closer, watching as she did the same. They were only inches apart now. You're really cool too. You're dark but blindingly beautiful, like the moon and the stars, he said softly. The moment their lips touched, Marceline closed her eyes, kissing him back, feeling as his fingers grazed along her jaw before they separated. The space between them was minuscule, and staring at each other, they kissed again, this time moving closer to each other as the kisses became more insistent. Using the wall for support, Ignitus stood, pulling Marceline up with him, as she stumbled, laughing against his lips, but pulling him close, she kissed the redhead again. Ignitus walked her backwards, and the moment her legs hit the bed, his arm wrapped around the back of her legs, pulling her flush against him. Marceline could feel the back of her dress bunching up as his hands skirted along her thighs, her breath catching as he nuzzled her face into her neck, kissing down towards her collarbone. Ignitus could feel her fingers on the buttons of his shirt, easily undoing them as her hand slipped under the fabric, pushing it over his shoulders. Pulling his shirt off, Ignitus tossed it to the side before unclasping his belt and dropping it to the side as he leaned down, laying her on the bed. Some steamy time later. She watched as he grabbed his boxers from the floor, putting them on. Marceline didn't know what to do and felt an embarrassed blush as she covered herself. Was this how it was supposed to go? They just get drunk, screw around, and go their separate ways? She watched as he walked around the room, before looking away and staring at the patterned sheets under her fingers. "What's wrong? I didn't hurt you too badly, did I?" he asked suddenly, now on the bed again, staring intently at her and sounding concerned. "No, I'm okay," she said quietly, her head still feeling fuzzy from the alcohol, watching with a blush as he handed her the panties she'd been wearing only hours earlier with a smirk. Quickly she snatched them away, putting them on under the sheets as he laughed. "You're choosing now to be embarrassed?" he asked, though not in a patronizing kind of way. "Maybe. What do we do now? I mean, you kind of just made me realize what I've been missing out on for the last few years," she said with a laugh. "Well, I suggest sleep, because I'm tired. A bit less drunk now, but still drunk, and I'm out of condoms," he said simply, still watching her. "Oh, okay then." She watched as he climbed on the bed, straddling her for a moment before flopping to the other side. "Wow, you really are a virgin, aren't you? Like, the kind who's never done anything ever, huh?" he asked gently in a serious voice. "Yeah, I mean, I had a boyfriend, but we never did anything like this," she said, leaning back, feeling as his fingers made little patterns on her arm. Marceline blinked, feeling as his fingers angled her face towards his as he pressed his mouth against hers. Everything he'd done and was doing was making her feel beautiful, coveted, and safe as his lips moved against hers, their legs tangled under the sheets, and his arms wrapped securely around her, holding the pale-skinned girl flush against him. Marceline didn't know if it was love at first sight, the alcohol in her body, or just lust, but she wanted him again. She wanted no ounce of space between their bodies. She just wanted him to make her feel like this until the day her heart stopped, and at the rate her heart was pounding, that day would be very soon. Marceline couldn't remember falling asleep. She'd woken with the biggest headache she'd ever had. The night before was a complete blur. She didn't want to open her eyes, that would make her headache worse. Plus, when it was obvious that she was awake, Lisa would start talking her head off and make this pounding headache so much worse than opening her eyes had. She wanted to turn over, but something wouldn't let her, like something was physically keeping her from turning over. Her back was warm, and the moment she shifted, something squeezed her tight, nuzzling the back of her neck, sending pleasurable tingles down her spine. Immediately her eyes snapped open, wincing at the sun, and looking down, she spotted a pair of arms holding her tightly. One was beneath her, the hand resting on her inner thigh, and the other was across her unclothed chest, his hand on top of her bare chest. Her heart was pounding in shock. She didn't remember this. She didn't remember any of this. She was a pair of panties away from being naked. Not knowing what to do, carefully, very carefully, she peeled his arms from her body, feeling the cool air against her freed skin. Untangling her legs from his, Marceline carefully pushed herself up with the mattress, her bare feet touching the floor. She winced at the squeak of the boards rubbing against each other, and finding her bra, she quickly put it on, turning to look at who she was in bed with. Immediately she was floored. She didn't recognize him at all, but she did have to admit that he was quite the looker. Finding her dress, she quickly pulled it on, reaching back to pull up the zipper. Looking around, she spotted her shoes and purse on the desk. Her cell phone was on top of the purse, and grabbing it, she shoved the phone into her purse, picking her shoes up as she hurried towards the retractable stairs, watching as they opened quietly. As she descended them, she watched the boy in his bed turn in his sleep before sneaking away. End flashback. At first, she'd been so ashamed with herself. Father was always stern when talking about relationships. And if he knew about this, it would be the end of life as she knew it, because he'd more than likely kill her. As the time passed, memories of that night returned to her in pieces. At first, in bits and pieces. At first that day she'd woken up. She'd been horrified at the thought that she'd possibly been raped, especially because of the bruises on her hips that she'd found when she changed at home. But the more the memories came back, the more she felt she could relax. She remembered laughing with him, and she remembered kissing him and pushing his shirt off. Obviously, it was a mutual thing, because if she'd been raped, why would he put a note in her phone saying that it would be awesome to hang out and that he'd had a great time with her that night? It was a relief for her, but it still didn't explain just who he was or how they met. She could remember seeing him all night, though. It had taken such a long time for her to even tell somebody, that someone being Fiona. But after that chance encounter with him at work, where he'd asked to hang out, she decided that it wouldn't hurt. It's not like she'd sleep with him again. So after a few texts, they hung out. And honestly, she'd had a really good time with him and his friends. What she hadn't counted on, though, was her jealousy of his girlfriend at the time. Marceline was never happier than that day he'd been at her house and told her that he and Angel had finally broken up. And another flashback. They'd been lounging around the recording room in the basement, both having been playing, just messing around honestly, when finally they just sat on the couches talking about whatever came up. So how's life with Angel? Marceline asked with a sour taste in her mouth. She hated that girl, absolutely hated her. Messing with her at the pool hall had been so fun that it should have been criminal. Oh, I broke up with her yesterday. That chick was off the deep end, he said, folding his arms behind his back and kicking his feet up on the table. This caught Marceline's attention immediately. Oh, you don't sound too heartbroken. Well, I never really liked her. I mean, I liked her, but I wasn't in love. Plus, she caused me a lot of problems, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. If anything, she was just a distraction, he said, going quiet. Do you want to get a drink or something? He asked, looking over at her. I'm not old enough to go out drinking, but there's some stuff in the house, she said, motioning upstairs. Okay, lead the way, Marcy, he said, following after her as she walked up the stairs. My dad has a few bottles of wine and a bottle or two of something harder. Grab the wine. We can celebrate my being single in fancy style, Ignitus said with a smirk, watching as Marceline shook her head. She found the bottle in the cellar in the basement, and popping the cork after grabbing 2 glasses, she went upstairs as he followed her. The house was huge, and as they walked down a hall, the pair entered what appeared to be a library. Marceline looked around before climbing another set of stairs leading him to the far corner of the room. Why so secretive? He asked, looking around at the secluded area. Dad will kill me if he sees me drinking, Marceline said, as she poured the wine into the glass cup. And he'll kill me more seeing me drinking with a guy. Yeah, that makes sense, he said, taking the cup offered to him. To me being single, he said with a grin, tapping his glass against hers before taking a drink. She hadn't drank with him since that night they first met. She'd been sure to avoid it, but now she was sure of her judgment, sure of what actions she would make if need be. They made it more than halfway through the bottle when she was cloudy-headed again, both laughing about something stupid that he'd said, his hand touching her arm, making her laugh and pull it away. That was how he found out that Marceline was ticklish, and with a smirk he began tickling her, watching as she squirmed to get away from him, laughing hard as he had her sandwiched between him and the wall. Stop! Ha! Stop it! Ha! Cut it out! Ignitus, stop it! Grabbing his wrist, she kept him at bay, feeling as he leaned close to her as they stared at each other. She looked from his eyes to his lips, and back again. She wanted him to kiss her. The feel of his lips against hers was something Marceline had honestly thought about frequently after that night. Her breathing was quick, and closing her eyes, she tilted her head upwards, feeling as his lips touched hers. She released his wrists from her grasp as one of his hands tilted her head, and the other rested on her hip, his fingers touching the bare skin under her shirt. The sensation made her freeze as he continued to kiss her more insistently. His words from earlier were now ringing through her head. I never really liked her. If anything, she was just a distraction. Was she a distraction? Quickly, she pressed her palms against his chest, gently pushing him away from her. Stop, she said with a shaky voice. She didn't want to be just a distraction. She didn't want to be his distraction. Marcy, what's wrong? He asked in concern, seeing the look on her face. I can't do this, Ignitus, she said softly, turning away from him, feeling as he held onto her hand firmly. Do what? Marcy, what? I don't want to be just a distraction to you, Ignitus, she said, pulling her hand from his grasp and hurrying away from him. Hey, hey! Quickly he caught up with her, grabbing her shoulder and turning her around. Marcy, that's all I am to you, right? Just a distraction like Angel was, aren't I? She asked, sounding hurt. What? No, of course not. What would make you think that? Again she tried getting away, but he held firm to her. Marceline, talk to me, he said, finally catching a glimpse of her face and staring in shock. She looked so hurt. I can't keep doing this with you. I can't keep just being your friend and then having those kinds of moments with you because it's so confusing to me. What are we? Are we just friends because I can do that? Are we more than that? Because I can do that too, but I can't do both at the same time. I can't just be a distraction to you, Ignitus, okay? I can't. I don't want to be another angel to you. Hearing this, he was shocked. How could you ever think that? You could never be a distraction, not to me. I do like you, Marcy, and I don't know what we are, but I don't want to hurt you. I'm messed up, okay? I'm a messed up guy, and all I'll do is cause you problems, but I can't stop myself from liking you, and I can't stop myself from liking someone else either. I don't want to start anything with you until I'm over that other person. If I still hold on to the possibility of being with her and start going out with you, then that's not fair to you, because my heart won't entirely be in it. I don't want to hurt you, okay? That's the last thing I want to do to you, he said softly, feeling that it was safe to let her go, that she wouldn't try to run again. So, what do we do then, Ignitus? Do we wait until you can manage a relationship? Because that doesn't feel right to me. No, I'm not one of those guys who asks people to wait for them, Marcy. I won't do that to you. It's not fair. How about you and I just stay as friends then? No more drinking, because at least when we don't drink, we can keep ourselves under control, Marceline said softly. That sounds fair. And if you find someone else, that's fair too. Okay, the same goes for you. I won't find anybody else, Marcy. I want what Marshall and Fiona have, and I won't find that how I am now. I'll be working on fixing me. Okay, I'm gonna leave now, though. I think we both need some time to think about what we've just discussed, and we're both a bit drunk, so that's no good for either of us right now, he said, running his fingers through his hair. Reaching out, he touched his fingers to her cheek before smiling softly and walking past her and out of the room. Marceline watching him go, still feeling the tingling sensation of where his fingers had been as she touched as he touched her cheek. End flashback. Lost in her thoughts, the walk had taken a lot less time than she anticipated, and before she knew it, she was already down the street from Fiona's house. Hurrying up, and with a bit more of a bounce in her step, she passed the large oak tree, expecting to see the familiar scene of Ignitus's truck in front of the small house, but the sight that met her eyes took her breath away. Where there was once a house was now a blackened shell, and on the lawn were flowers and candles and small stuffed animals. There was a small memorial, and the photo in the center was of Blaze, Ignitus's grandmother. Oh, Nana, he said softly, walking over to the small memorial plate. Oh, Nana, she said softly, walking over to the small memorial pile and kneeling in front of it, looking at all of the things. Suddenly the memory hit her hard. Ignitus's drunken 20 questions. My Nana has to be my biggest influence. She's like the best person ever. She never looked at me like I was anything less. Not like my parents. She's the only person that I know for sure loves me. No matter what stupid stuff I do, I know that she'll always love me. I don't know what I'd do without her. This this was not something he'd be handling well at all, and that thought alone concerned her greatly. He'd been in a complete daze when Ember nudged him awake, and for a moment she stared curiously at him. Something was off with her brother. Ig, you look tired, she said carefully. Why don't you let me drive us to the lawyer's office? Mm-hmm, she said. She watched as he stumbled around the side of the truck before climbing in clumsily into the passenger side. quickly getting into the driver's seat and snapping the door shut, locking them both. She rounded on her brother. "You're high, aren't you? High on something," she said, looking at his unfocused eyes before feeling sadness for him. "You really can't handle this without something dulling you down, can you?" she asked, watching as he leaned forward, resting his head on the dashboard before shaking his head. "Okay." She watched, waiting to see if he'd move, but when he didn't, she started the car, driving slowly, so he wouldn't bump his head, though eventually he spoke. "I don't like it, Emma. I don't like it," he said, the pain in his voice obvious. Finally reaching a red light, she looked over at her brother, who still rested his forehead against the dashboard as tears streamed from his eyes. "I don't like that she's not here anymore. I don't want to live in a world where she's not here anymore. I can't do it. I just can't," he said, gripping his arms tightly, feeling only the aching sadness in his heart. "I just want her back. I never thought I could miss somebody so much." "Ig, it's gonna be okay. You know Nana's always with us, just like Papa. Don't you remember when he died, she said that she could still feel him around her?" "But I don't feel her around, Emma. I don't feel her here at all," he said, taking in a shuddering breath that wrenched his sister's heart. Ember continued to drive until she pulled into a parking lot, and parking the truck, she reached over, wrapping her arms around him, feeling as he hugged her back tightly. "Iggy, I can't imagine how much this hurts you. The bond you and Anna had was different from hers and mine. But my glob, did she love you, Ignitus? She loved you so much, probably more than you loved her. Do you think she wants to be away from you? Nothing on heaven or earth would make her want to be away from you. You should know this. You might not be able to feel her yet, but give it time. Right now you're hurting, and you want to see her, and hear her voice, and smell her perfume, but you can't. I know how hard that is. Do you think that I don't want those things too? Because I do. But now we have to search for her in the subtleties of life. We have to see her in her favorite flowers, hear her in our dreams, and feel her in the air around us. We have to remember what she taught us, but most importantly, you have to remember what she taught you, Iggy. She taught you that it's okay to hurt, and that love is something that spans not only just miles, but universes and lifetimes. She taught you kindness and how to use your heart in the toughest situations. Iggy, everything that makes you good is from her. You know that, right? She gave you pieces of herself when she taught you these things. Just remember that you're still loved. Nana still loves you even if you can't feel it. Our friends and your friends love you. I most definitely still love you, and nothing will ever change that. You can't go missing like that again, Ignitus. I was worried sick about you. Please don't go away. Don't go away with the drugs. Don't go away and leave me alone, because you're all I have left, Ig. I know you don't want to be alone here, but I don't want to be alone here either," she said, feeling as he squeezed her tighter. "Everything just feels wrong without her, Emma." "I know, Iggy. I really, really understand. I do." After taking a breath, he released his sister, sitting back in the seat and wiping his eyes. "Do I really have to sit in this room with them?" he asked, and Ember, knowing he meant their parents, gave him a sad look and nodded her head. "Yeah, but that doesn't mean it will take a long time, Iggy, okay?" "Okay. Alright, let's go in then." The lawyer's office was stuffy and cold. Ignitus didn't like it one bit, and neither did Ember. They stood in the back while their parents sat in the leather chairs in front of the desk, and after several moments the lawyer walked in holding a folder. Sitting down at the front of his desk, he cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses. "Today we're here for the reading of Blaze Flint's last will and testament. Her will was very straightforward, and Blaze was very firm in how she wanted this to be dealt with. Aidan Flint and his wife Seraphine Flint. In accordance to Blaze's final wishes, she entrusts to you a sum of $100,000 to pay off any remaining debts, bills, housing costs, and her funeral costs, or any costs relating to her state. The remainder of the funds you may use as you wish," he said, flipping the page in the folder as he began reading again. "To Ember Flint, granddaughter, Blaze leaves to you her jewelry with the exception of one item. She also leaves you a sum of $50,000 from her life insurance policy, along with a letter. It is stated specifically that the letter is for your eyes only," he said, watching as she nodded. Again he turned a page. "To Ignitus Flint, grandson, Blaze leaves to you her house." Before he could finish, their father laughed, the sound making Ignitus wince. If only his grandmother could have been prepared for what happened in the house, aw. Do you hear that, Ignitus? She left you a burnt-out husk. Sir, if you'll excuse me, I'm not finished, the lawyer said in a huff. But before he could continue, Amber interrupted, looking apologetic. Excuse me, but in my parents' section it said that they have to pay for any housing costs, right? She asked, watching as her parents exchanged a glance. That is indeed correct, yes. So it's safe to assume that because my grandmother's house was damaged in a fire, it's their responsibility to pay for and fix the damages, right? She asked as now her parents stared at her in shock. That is indeed correct. May I continue now? Please, and I apologize for my interruption. I just wanted my parents to be aware of what their responsibilities are, Ember said with a smirk, as she leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. As I was saying, to Ignitus Flint, grandson, Blaze leaves you her house and the remainder of her life insurance policy, which is a sum of $500,000, which will be paid to you at her request in monthly installments of $2,000 until the amount is completely relinquished to you. With installments of $2,000 a month, you will receive monthly payments for the next 20 years and 10 months, the lawyer said as silence rang loudly. Furthermore, you will also receive. What the hell? He gets more? Aiden, calm down. No, this is ridiculous. He in no way needs that much money, and I refuse to allow him to have it. It's not up to you. I'm not rebuilding that home where he gets $2,000 a month for doing nothing. He took care of her and loved her unconditionally. Where were you? Where were you? Alright, Mr. Flint, if you can't behave calmly, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave the room, the lawyer said sternly, and gritting his teeth the man sat down. Now, as I was saying, furthermore, you will receive Blaze's ruby necklace. Finally, you also have a letter from your grandmother. Oh. Blaze's belongings, which have been specifically named in this will, are in a safety deposit box on the floor below, and are currently being retrieved for you. The money that has been left to you in the will shall be given to you today in the form of a check, he said as a knock came to the door. Moments later, a secretary entered with the box. Seraphine and Aiden Flint. I love that name, Seraphine, the secretary said, handing them the envelope. The check was in, along with the second. Ember Flint? Ember walked up, accepting the jewelry box, along with 2 envelopes. Ignitus Flint? Moving forward, Ignitus held open his hand, taking the 2 envelopes and the small box, placed on the palm of his hand. Opening the box, it revealed a large diamond-shaped ruby on a gold chain, and almost immediately he recognized it. It was his grandfather's. Look it, he said, holding it out for her and watching as her eyes went wide. Oh my glob, Ig, that's Papa's ruby, she said in a hushed voice. What the hell is this? It's the bill for attorney services. As stated in Blaze's will, you are the one to pay for any bills, debts, or housing problems with the money she's left to you, the lawyer said. Quickly, Ember turned to her brother. Let's go before there's a problem, she said, pulling him back towards the door as silently they slipped out of it. The walk to the truck was a silent one, and by the time Ignitus finally spoke, it was more than an hour later and they were halfway home. I can't believe she left me all of that, he said softly, his finger playing over the cool stone around his neck. I can. I knew she'd take care of you any way she could. But do you see now, Ig? Even though she's not with us, she's still doing everything she can for you. This means you can rent your own place now and never have to worry about it, Ember said with a grin, knowing that her brother wanted a bit of freedom lately. I do like living with you, Em. It's just, I know, Ig, you want guy time. You want a place of your own. And I understand. I really do. I mean, how could I have my boyfriend over with you there all the time, giving us death looks? He better keep his hands to himself, Ignitus said absent-mindedly as his senses began to regain their sharpness. Oh my glob, Ignitus, you know what? I've had sex. I've had a lot of really awesome down and dirty sex. Quickly, Ignitus covered his ears. I don't need to hear this. La 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 la. With a scowl, Ember pinched his arm. Ig, it's what happens, okay? I know you've done it with Angel, and the way you look at that Marceline girl, I'm pretty sure that you've either gone all the way with her or you want to. And I know for a fact that your last girlfriend you had while I was home, you screwed around with because nobody's that proud after a 4th date without getting lucky. Just accept it. I know. Yes, I'm your baby sister, but only by 3 minutes. Pretty much if you've done it, I've probably done it, she said as she shook her head. And check your phone. I had to turn the thing off for the service. Okay, where are we going? Home to the apartment. Where else would we go? She asked, watching as realization washed over him. Oh yeah, I forgot, he said quietly, and immediately they knew why. Immediately she knew why. So, whoa, so what are they going to do with her? Dad wanted her to be cremated immediately, but I pushed for the open casket ceremony for you. The final decision has yet to be decided. Cremation would be cheaper, and if anything, we could always bury the ashes with Papa. Yeah, we could do that. Or we could keep them and put them in an urn. Maybe make a little shelf with her picture on it. I think I like that idea even better. Okay, I'll call the funeral director and let them know our decision. The rest of um the rest of the drive was quiet, and when they returned to the apartment, Ignitus went upstairs while Ember went out on errands. Opening the door, he made his way into his room and flopped on the bed. It was soft and familiar, and it smelled so good. Knowing he needed a shower, he grabbed some clothes and walked down the hall. Things had to get better. Things had to get better. After all, they couldn't get worse. Well, that is definitely foreshadowing if I've ever seen it. Um, so that was the chapter. It was intense, but also just there was some cute stuff in there with Ignitus and Marceline especially. That was sweet. I'm glad they put more of Marceline in the book. I'm glad that Marceline is like she had a bigger part in this chapter because we haven't seen like a lot of her. She's usually just around like oh they mentioned Marceline hanging out with Fiona and the rest, but she had her own little thing with Ignitus. That was really cute, and that was really intense. And I'm guessing it's even gonna get even more intense. But hopefully Ignitus and maybe Marceline and Ignitus will be together. I don't know if that's what happens in the show. I haven't seen it yet. Like I said, I mean, I don't usually see it. I mean, like haven't been haven't been watching it ever since I started reading this book. I think I'm somewhere in season 2-ish. I do have the full box set, but I have to get to it. I've been really busy. And you guys know I've been trying to record and post every single day, which I've actually been doing a pretty good job of. Hang on. Let's see, let's see what I've gotten done. Let's see what I've gotten done. Okay. Yep. 1 day ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, 6 days ago. Yeah, so for the past like 6 days, I've been posting every single day, pretty much. So anyway, and this is gonna be day 7, I think. Hopefully I can post this properly on time. But I just want to say I will be right back with the next chapter. Why do I get the feeling that that comment, they couldn't get any worse, is very foreboding? Because you're the author, okay? You know what you're doing. Um, he says, like, oh, the comment that things couldn't get any worse is very foreboding. Of course you would know that it was foreboding. You're the author, you're the one writing this shit. So, if you think it's foreboding, it's probably because you're gonna do some shit to the characters. Probably because you're gonna make them suffer through some shit. I love this book. I'm, I just want to keep reading it forever, and I'm gonna be right back with another chapter again. I lost a few loved ones in my life, and I knew my great grandmother when I was younger. And then she lived to 92 years old, and then at 92 years old she passed away, and I was I don't exactly remember, but like probably I think it was like in my early 20s. I think it was 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. I don't remember exactly, but I was I was an adult when she died. Like, I had a few good years with her, and then she died. And it was really, really unfortunate. But anyway, Ugh. Also, I'm working on my book. I did a little bit of work on it earlier today, and I'm gonna do some work on it a little bit later today. And I would like to read the prologue in chapter one to you guys. I'm pretty close to being done with chapter one, and then I would like to read the prologue in chapter one. I'd like to start like reading my book and putting it in a video. And this is the book that was inspired by this book. So like there's some super intense stuff in it. Like it even starts out kind of intense, like and and stuff like that. And like there's a bunch of stuff. I don't want to. I'm afraid to give away spoilers, but it's inspired a lot by this book, and there's like a lot of stuff going on in it, and also like mysteries and whatever. There's some stuff that comes up later that you don't expect. Is all I'm saying. So. I started it a couple months ago, and chapter one is actually going to be pretty short compared to the rest of the chapters because I'm planning some fairly long chapters. So I'm gonna read that too. Not sure exactly when that's gonna be, but I'm gonna try and get this video up tonight or tomorrow if I can't get it up tonight. Either way, I'm gonna have this up by the time I'm going to bed, and then I'm gonna like leave it up and have the whole thing plugged in because what I've been doing is if I have it uploading, earlier in the night, and then sometimes it'll go until, and then sometimes it'll take hours to upload, so I'll just leave it. I'll just leave the computer on open overnight, and I'll leave the screen open, and then I'll just like have it plugged in so that it can upload. And then by the time I wake up the next day, it's uploaded. Which is probably what I'm gonna end up doing with the burst uploads. I'm probably gonna record it during the day and then let it upload at night, like while I'm sleeping, so that I'm not wasting time that I could be doing something else. Anyway, I'll be right back with another chapter. Alright, I'm back with the second chapter of the night. Like, 3.5 hours later. Yeah, it's late. It's like 11 p.m. So I'm gonna read this last chapter, and then that's gonna be it for the night, and I'm gonna, probably try and finish writing my chapter after this, and then that's gonna be it. And then I'm gonna go to bed. Um, like, I'm gonna get ready for bed. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna do whatever I want because it's late, and I would like to be in bed on time so I can be up on time because I was up really late last night. And this looks like a much shorter chapter than the previous one. Chapter 62 Choices. It had been the better part of a month, and Fiona was sure that she'd escaped the talk her mother wanted to have with her at the hospital while they waited on the pregnancy test. The house was unassumingly quiet when Fiona arrived home from work. Marshall had been back at his house having a boys' night with the guys from the band, so she wasn't surprised to find the house empty. Her dad would have been at work, and her mom too, but after getting into pajamas, there was a knock on her door. "Come in," she said, watching as the door opened, revealing her mother. "Hi, can you come downstairs for a few minutes, Fiona?" "Okay, is everything all right?" "Oh, yes, but I wanted to talk with you." "Would you like to have some tea with me?" Ellen asked, watching as her daughter nodded and followed after her. Her mom seemed to take forever to make the tea, but when she returned, they sat together in the living room, a tray of cookies between them, the silence building. "Wanted to talk about something, Mom?" Fiona asked, feeling slightly anxious. "Fiona, I don't want to make this awkward or embarrassing, but I do want to talk to you about your relationship with Marshall," Ellen said, as immediately Fiona groaned. "Mom!" "No, not like that, Fiona. You've made it perfectly clear that you both know how to make smart and safe choices with each other. I'm proud of you both, because you do try to be safe when you are together like that, and in the case of what happened a few weeks ago, I know you're both mature enough to make adult decisions. Neither of you are children anymore, so I won't speak to you like you are one," she said softly, taking a sip of her tea. "I wanted to talk to you about what's in your future. After all, you're going to be 20 in the next several months, and Marshall's already 21. Neither of you are children anymore. You're young adults on the verge of something huge, not just with your music, but in your relationships. I just want you to know that I support you and your choices, Fiona. Mom, the blonde said softly, but her mom wasn't done yet. Please, let me finish. You're an amazingly talented young woman, Fiona. You're beautiful and you've been through so much. I'm so glad you've become my daughter, because in these almost 4 years, I've never felt such happiness. I never realized what my life was missing until we had you come into our home. You were such a quiet girl, but now you're a strong young woman. I've watched you grow and open up, and although you were never my little girl, even though I never birthed you or watched your first steps or heard your first words, you'll always be my baby. Reaching over, Fiona hugged the older blonde tightly. I love you, Mom. And I love you too, sweetie. Once she released her mother, Fiona sat back against the couch, watching as she smiled. So what future do you see for you and Marshall? Ellen asked, taking a sip of tea. We were talking about maybe me moving in with him. It's just that he lives so far away, and I don't want to hurt you and Dad by leaving like that. But I actually want to do it, she said softly, feeling a mixture of betrayal and liberation to actually speak to her mother about it. I do want to live with Marshall. I know I love him. I don't know what's in our future, but I'm so scared of it. But I'm excited too. Fiona, you know you can stay with us for as long as you want to. I know that, but this is home. But so is with Marshall. I get different things from both places. Here I get my family, I get security, I get everything I ever wanted as a child. But with Marshall, I get freedom and love and intimacy, and this will sound stupid, but I can touch him. I don't mean in any sexual way either, but we're always touching. Hands, fingers, arms, feet, hugs, kisses. I never realized how starved I was for physical affection, how much I craved to feel someone's arms wrapped around me. And when we sleep, I feel so loved and cherished and safe just by how he holds me, like he'll never let me go, like he'll never let a thing hurt me. I don't know what I want. I don't want to hurt you and Dad, but I don't want to hurt Marshall either, Fiona said sadly, looking at the cookie in her hand. Fiona, it's your choice, and if it makes you feel better, Finn and Jake were the same way. They thought that we'd be mad at them for leaving after having them with us for so long. You weren't mad? Of course not. We did our job as parents, Fiona. We prepared them as best we could for the world, and we let them go. And you've seen what happens. They always come back. Finn's always here, Jake's always bringing the girls and Lady around, and we love it. Fiona, if you're ready to try and live on your own, then go ahead and try. And if you're not ready, you will always have a home to come back to, Ellen said with a soft smile. Reaching over, Fiona hugged her again. You're the best mom ever. It was a blast from the past for him. FP sat on the couch, his feet on the table as he slammed away at the paddle next to Ash, who swore up a storm. Moko was leaning over his shoulder, telling him how to win and practically wresting the controller from his hands, and Marshall sat back, content to be hanging out with all of his friends, unencumbered by the distance or other responsibilities for the time being. So much had changed in the last few years, they'd all grown up. Some of them had lost loved ones, some had gained them, others learned new things about themselves and the world, and others learned to trust more. All of them had changed, but in a way they had become more of who they were supposed to be. Yo, Marsh, you alive over there? Moko asked, having tossed Ash the controller back. Oh yeah, I'm okay, just thinking. Well, what were you thinking about? He asked, leaning over the back of the couch near where Marshall was sitting. Just life and where it's going, you know? I mean, in the last few years, so much has happened, and we've all changed. I mean, technically, we're all adults. Dude, you're the adult. I'm 19, Moko said, earning Marshall's grin. Kid, you know what I mean, Marshall said, watching as the youngest of the band smirked. Besides, you turn 20 next month, and then a few after that, so does Fiona. We're not kids anymore, you know? Yeah, I do. Some of us grew up faster than others, though, he said quietly, and Marshall understood what he meant. It's not like we could change that, man. I wish we could. I know, Marsh. So aside from that, what's on your mind? You're pretty quiet tonight. Usually we're jamming out to something or being loud as hell. I think I think I want to take our relationship to the next level, Marshall said loud enough for the rest of the guys to hear him. Marsh, dude, I'm flattered, but I'm already taken. Hearing this, Marshall laughed hard, punching the younger teen hard in the arm. Dude, I was talking about me and Fiona, you dip. I mean, we've been together almost 4 years. I want us to live together, Marshall said. Well, Kate stays weekends at my place, and it's amazing, Moko said with a smile. She's the best. Yeah, man, I just got a new place, and Ange is with me for the summer, FP said, scratching his arm. Oh my glob, dude, I thought you were getting rid of her, Ash asked with a scowl. It's my life, Ashton. Do not call me Ashton, Iggy, Ash snapped back, glowering at him. Okay, okay. FP's relationship suicide aside, he said, making sure that both parties had finished their little argument. It sounds like a good idea, Marshall, but where are you gonna live? Here? Mo asked, flopping on the couch and wincing. Well, yeah, I mean, I already own the house, Marshall said, scratching the back of his head, but it has crossed my mind to find a place closer to her family. Well, before you go and blow the cash on a new place, at least see if she's willing to live down all this way. That's the thing, we've talked about it, but we haven't really talked about it, you know? Like when we're half asleep and stuff. So I asked her to move in with me, and she didn't even hesitate. She straight out said yes. Like, no question about it. I just don't want her to be missing her parents and stuff like that, you know? I mean, we've done the weekend thing, you guys know that, and it's just time, I think, to try actually living together. All those times when I was super sick and she lived here taking care of me. Those are some of the best days in our relationship, Marshall said softly. You're a flippin' pansy, Marsh. If nobody's gonna say it, I will. You're going soft. Marshall glowered at Ignitus, who simply grinned at him. I can still kick your ass. If I recall, our last fight was in my favor. Yeah, the day after my chemo session. After my chemo session. It's the day before now, and you'd better believe that I can and will kick your ass, Iggy, Marshall said with an edge to his voice. Okay, point taken. I don't feel like getting bruised ribs today, so I'll take a pass, Marsh. Jeez, the redhead said, turning back to the TV screen. Damn right you will. Marshall mumbled loud enough for him to hear. So what's new in the Ash world? Any ladies for you, man? Nah, aside from my gigs I've been working, I've got no time to find a girlfriend. Well, I know Fiona's friend Marcelina's single. Maybe Fee can work her magic and hook you guys up for a date. Marshall asked, though immediately FP hung up. FP spoke up. Nah, she likes somebody already. Who? Marshall asked. Just some guy she hangs around with every now and again, he said nonchalantly. Well, if he doesn't see her more than once a week, then it should be no problem for Ash and Marceline to hang out a bit. It's not like they're dating, and for all we know, they might hit it off, Marshall said, shrugging his shoulders. Well, maybe Marcy wants to be with the other guy, Ignitus said in an uncharacteristically snippy voice. Dude, what's your issue? Moko asked suddenly, and immediately FP felt his ears burning in embarrassment. Nothing, he said quickly, trying to cover his tracks. It's just that me and Marceline hang out, and she always talks about this guy. Whatever, fine, hook them up, go on the date, Ash. There's not even a date yet, he said, not really knowing what else to say at that point. Well, it's whatever, then do what you want then, geez. I'm gonna grab a soda. Anyone want one? Marshall asked, standing, listening to the chorus of requests, and storing them to memory. Walking from the room, he contemplated his thoughts as he made his way to the kitchen. Grabbing the sodas from the fridge, he snagged a slice of pizza that remained from their feast earlier in the evening. Something was off with FP. He was being uncharacteristically aggressive and snappy lately, not to mention he'd barely eaten and was off the wall today, too. Normally, he'd eat a good majority of the buffalo pizza by himself, and today he'd had just a few bites out of a single slice. And the long sleeves. He'd never wore a hoodie ever unless it was cold out, and with it nearing summer once again, there was no need for sweatshirts and long sleeves. Not to mention, they practically had to drag him away from his truck because he kept picking at a scratch on the door, and had been for nearly 30 minutes. Something was really, really off with him, and Marshall just couldn't pinpoint the cause of it. All he knew was that it was concerning, more so than he'd like to admit. He was sure that now more than anything, he was sure that more than anything, though, that how he was right now was because of Angel. With a sigh, Marshall walked back into the living room, tossing his friends their drinks, forgetting his own because he was so lost in his thoughts. That was the game he played that night, though. He didn't want to confront FP about his behavior because, while he knew there was something different, he didn't know the cause of it. So, while he thought about it, he made a conscious effort to remain part of the ever changing conversation so the guys wouldn't question his attentiveness again. His mind was going a mile a minute as he lay there. Checking the clock, it was close to 2 in the morning. His thoughts were erratic, sparking off left and right. After taking those pills for so long and feeling so little, that new stuff Angel gave him made him seem as if the world was bursting with color, like he could do anything. Some pill called cinnamon. That stuff she tried getting him to try before they first broke up. Now that it was in his system, though, now he knew why she wanted to take it, because what he was feeling right now was amazing. It's like all the sadness in his life was gone, or at least so insignificant that it didn't bother him. But that scratch on his truck still bothered him. It was like it was there, like it was taunting him, like it knew there was nothing he could do to get rid of it. Before he'd realized it, he was already outside picking at the scratch on his door again. It was so annoying. So damn annoying. He wiped and it stayed, wiped and stayed, wiped and stayed. What if he scratched off the scratch? But then there would be more scratches and that wouldn't work. But then the other taunting son of a bitch scratch would be gone, and he wouldn't have to worry about it ever again, and he could just finally be fine with the damn truck. He looked around and finding nothing to scratch the scratch away with, he settled for buffing it out and grabbing a cloth from behind his seat as he began wiping it with the cloth. Wiping, 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 wiping. He'd been wiping so long, holy crap, he was actually changing the truck's color. Wait, no, the sun was coming up. That's what it was. Then suddenly it hit him. Then suddenly it hit him. Why the hell was he buffing the scratch out of his truck from 2 a.m. until sunup? What the flippin' hell? Standing, he threw the rag into the truck through the window, feeling a little more than pissed off. He stormed around Marshall's yard, kicking various shrubs as he vented his frustrations. That was so stupid. 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 Stupid was such a weird word. Who the hell even came up with it? Suddenly he was pissed that the word stupid was so absolutely, for lack of a better word, stupid. He could feel his body slowing down, and all at once he didn't want it to stop. This was probably the best high of his life, aside from the totally, and here comes that word again, stupid obsession with that scratch on his truck. It was so dumb, so freaking dumb that he waited so long to actually try this. The more that he paced around, the more sluggish he began to feel. It was like a slow drain, and he didn't want it to go away. Knowing he had at least one last bottle in the back of his truck, he went back to it to face that stupid damn scratch, and tried his best to ignore it as he reached for the bottle, taking several quick gulps, and feeling as he got a bit higher. This was good. This was very good. If he just kept taking a few drinks when he felt like he was starting to crash, he would stop crashing. Grabbing an empty water bottle, he filled it with the alcohol and walked back into Marshall's house, screwing the cap on as he did so. But before he could re-enter the house, he paused. They would know he was drinking and would want to know why. So instead, he dug his keys from his pocket and climbed into the truck with that stupid scratch on the door and drove to his apartment on the other side of town. He was 10 minutes away from Ember and 15 from Marshall. Pulling into the open spot, he climbed the stairs, feeling a sudden sense of adrenaline-fueled paranoia, like he most definitely should climb the stairs as fast as he could, and like he most definitely should this very instant, and so he did, taking the steps to the 4th floor 2 at a time, feeling his heart beating, almost as if it was going to pound out of his very chest. He was gasping for air, but the sense of paranoia didn't go away. It didn't go away. He walked down the hall, fiddling with his keys, finding the one for his apartment. Jamming it into the door lock, he was quick to enter the apartment, scanning the room for any reason to be nervous, and finding none, yet still unable to feel at ease. His skin felt like it was crawling, and that sense of deflation was happening again, so unscrewing the bottle, he took a long drink from it, and feeling nothing but exhaustion, he walked into the bedroom, kicking his shoes off, and flopped on the bed, not caring in the slightest that he landed on the sleeping blonde, startling her awake before passing out completely. Does anyone else get the sense that something is wrong, that something weird is going on with FP? Marshall asked that morning, while the guys sat around the table eating the scrambled eggs and sausages that Marshall had made that morning. The rules were that the first one up had to make breakfast, and since FP was gone, the responsibility fell to Marshall. Yeah, I do. I got up to use the bathroom after drinking 4 Sprites, and he was outside wiping the side of his truck at like 3 a.m. I mean, if it was bugging him so much, why didn't he do something about it sooner? It's been there like forever. Ash said, shoveling another forkful of eggs into his mouth. Yeah, not to mention that he was pretty off last night, like his mood swings were weird, Moko said, taking a glass of the chocolate milk in front of him. Taking a drink of the glass of the chocolate milk in front of him. He was getting pissed over the stupidest crap. Yeah, like when Marsh finally dragged his ass away from his truck. Yeah, why was he so mad? Like, you'd think we killed his firstborn and sacrificed it to Satan or something, Moko said, watching Marshall at the table sit at the table and begin eating. What do you think, Marsh? Marshall was quiet for a moment before he responded. I think Angel had him try some weird ass drug and that he was on a trip the entire time, Marshall said, listening as the sounds of clattering silverware stopped. You really think that? They sounded so shocked, but then again, Marshall couldn't really blame them. They knew FP from school. Marshall had grown up with them. They knew him, but Marshall knew him. He's weak-willed. When he wants acceptance, he's the easiest thing to bend and manipulate. I've seen it happen. I know Angel's a pill popper, so it wouldn't shock me if she's gotten him to try something with her, he said in annoyance at the very thought of the pale-haired girl. Marsh, I know he's anything but a straight-edge kind of guy, but do you really think he's actually into that crap? Ash asked in a serious voice. I do. I know he smokes pot, because I really won't lie to you guys. I've actually done it with him at a few parties. He's always been so drunk that he either never remembered or just doesn't bring it up. But it's not like pot's a big deal. I mean, the worst thing that happens is you get the munchies, and everything vision-wise is a bit slow. So, what do we do about it? Moko asked. What can we do? It's not like we have proof of what he's doing, just that he was acting weird. We have to let him make his own choices. Like now we have to deal and let him choose Angel. He's an adult. A misguided man-child of an adult who's been through emotional hell lately, but still, we have to let him lead his own life, Marshall said quietly, not feeling like eating anymore. And if he fails? Moko asked, draining the last of his chocolate milk. Then we catch him and lift him back up. And if he won't let us? This time it was Ash, but still Marshall spoke confidently. Then it's our choice to do it anyways. Okay, well that was... Yeah, alright, that's it for the 2 chapters. So that's it for this video. I'm gonna be bringing you guys the next chapter in like a day, I think. The next one's gonna be a burst upload. So I actually have a couple of videos that I'm gonna do before then. Um, so before I do the 5 chapter burst upload of a Guardian Angel, I'm gonna be reading prologue and chapter 1 of my book, and I also have a little like really short video to post up. So I'm gonna be doing that, and it might be a couple of days until you guys get the next few chapters of this book, but I'm planning to record a bunch of stuff tomorrow, so hopefully that'll be it. Anyway, I gotta go. My next video will be in like a day, and I love each and every one of you guys. Please don't forget to always be yourself. Be good to yourself and to others. You are valid, and I will see you guys all. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.